Hey, it's Thanksgiving week, and I was thinking about Thanksgiving week and the whole concept of giving thanks and what that's all about. So we're going to jump in on that really quick, and then we're going to go back to the topic we were talking about a couple weeks ago, which is guardedness. So my guest, my co-host, if you will, is Stephen Frew, Dr. Stephen Frew, and he's got four different versions of guardedness. We're going to talk about one, maybe two, but probably one. So hang tight. We'll do that, and then we'll just keep expanding on it. So if you have any questions, if you want to us anything you want us to answer, just make comments below, and then and subscribe to this page. Something new that we're doing. The idea is to help men have great lives. It's called Men's Breakthrough. So what's a breakthrough? A breakthrough is where you are living in one area of thinking and then it shifts. So you actually go from, like, let's say, one, like you're thinking one way, and then all of a sudden your whole thinking, every part of you shifts, and you're now operating at a different level. You have a breakthrough. So at that different level, you start to have different outcomes, you start to get different results, you start to experience the world completely different. So giving thanks. Let me just do this. Let me just bring Stephen in, and we're going to talk about this together because I love like how we vamp together. So Stephen, Dr. Stephen, how you doing?
Hi. Hi, everybody. How are you? When I think of gratitude,
Yeah.
I'm grateful. Let me say that. Let me get it a frame. I've worked as a psychotherapist and a leadership coach. I've worked for 100 years, and in that time, I have seen a number of men who don't seem to be able to love. They are so wounded. They are so betrayed. The culture betrayed them. Their families betrayed them. Life betrayed them. They come to my office out of a failing marriage, and we talk about love, but they don't seem to be able to love. So they get in trouble. Maybe they have an affair or two or three. Maybe they do something inappropriate with children. Maybe they withdraw and get into an addiction. Maybe there's lots of ways
A
to
lot of
not love.
options to hide out, right?
Yes. So, what I'm grateful for, deeply grateful for, is that I can love and
Hmm.
I have people who receive my love. And my job is to love them, not to worry about whether I am being loved, but whether I can love. That's how I want to say the gratitude thing. So if you are stuck, that would be the time to call Martine or get in touch with him or me, either one of us.
Or you, yeah, both of us. We
If you're
both kick
stuck,
butt.
what's that?
We
What?
both kick butt.
Yes, we do.
Wow, you know what, Dr. Frew, as always, you take something in a different direction. And I love it because you evolve. Every time I have a conversation about something or a thought, you take it to the next level. And I hope I do that for you. So you talked about gratitude. So I was thinking about giving thanks. And one of the things that we do at the table, and I usually go to two or three different Thanksgivings. I get, friends that invite me, Friendsgivings, Thanksgiving. We have one in the United States. We go down to Mexico. My mom lives in Mexico, so we go down there. And then so we have two different Thanksgivings every year. And one thing I like to do is to go around the table and actually say out loud what you are thankful for. And you said something right now that I would not have thought about, but it's always there. Like, what am I thankful for? What do I like to give thanks for? Is the same thing. It's the fact that I have self-love. And I tell you, and the reason I'm laughing is because 2 or 3 years ago, that was a funny thing to say. That was like self-love. Like, what are you talking about? That's so stupid. It's such a and one day it just hit me that I didn't love myself. And I was like, oh, I probably should get some of that self-love thing. And that started my quest. And so I'm grateful for the love I have for me, and then how I then can give that away. Then it just gives me more freedom to give love to other people.
Yeah, that's good, and you can fine tune that a little bit. You could say, because most of us, most of the men I've talked to over the years have said, "Well, she doesn't love me," or "I wasn't loved by my dad," or that kind of stuff. Well,
Yeah.
I've turned that around. I have the privilege of loving, and
The
my
privilege of what?
loving,
Oh yeah,
loving,
yeah,
not being loved. So I
yeah,
being loved takes second seat in myself, and I say my job is to love. Who do I love? I love my wife. My job is to love her, not analyze, diagnose, and criticize, but my job is to love her. She'll find out what her job is. That's not my job. That's her
yeah,
job. My
yeah,
job is to love my children. So when certain kind of music was popular and I was seeing a young boy whose father referred him, and it was rap music, and I asked him if he didn't want to see me, of course, he's 14, and I asked him if he'd come in the next week and bring his boombox, and he did. And I listened and I kept stopping him and I said, what are they saying? What are they saying? And so after about 40 minutes of that, I got an idea of what he was relating to. And I said, these people sound pretty angry. Well, his father said to call me and said, I'm not paying to have somebody come and sit in the boombox in his office. I'm not paying for that. You're not a therapist. I don't want you with my son. And so I only saw the boy 2 times, the
yeah.
first time and the second time when he brought his boombox. But what got through was I went up to the house to talk to my 14-year-old son that second after that second session, who was listening to virtually the same music.
Yeah.
And instead of slamming the door like I used to do, turn it down, shut the door. Instead of that, I walked into his room and sat on the floor. And he said to me, what's up? He's my stepson. I love him very much. I raised him since he was little. What's up? And I said, I just want to understand what this is. And so I gave myself permission to love him and love his world and be curious about it. You talk about that a lot. To be curious about his world and use that as my loving him.
Mm.
That I'm grateful that I have the capacity to love
Wow,
someone. So that's a big deal for me. Because
that's a big deal.
I've spent most of my life protecting myself from other
Yeah.
people because I was abused as a child. So I spent a lot of time protecting myself. When I finally learned that I could love and I could make a difference, that changes the world.
Mm. That's great. What was that? What was that moment that you decided to stop protecting yourself?
It was a number of moments.
Was it okay?
Um,
So it wasn't one. Yeah.
yeah. It was some insights in therapy. We at one point we should do a thing about child abuse, and I'll
We
talk
will.
about that. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great. That's a number.
because
Yeah.
it's very, very powerful. And the whole thing is this thing I want to do with you on trauma, that we see trauma as an event, but trauma actually goes on and on and
It's like a
on.
ring. Like it's like you ring it.
Yeah, it's
A bell.
resonating.
Yeah. It
Yeah, that's
resonates
right.
like a bell.
That's a good phrase for it.
Yeah.
So
Good stuff.
gratitude is for what you can do, not what you can't do. What you do have and not what you don't have.
And it's like, it's really like in a selfish way. I think I'd rather be the person that is able to give love than
Yeah.
than to be needy. Like I need it. I need it. I need it. Um, I just feel like I could be an example. I could be more of an example that way. Like I can make more of a difference that way. One way, if I'm like needy, 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 I would say very narcissistic. Maybe both are narcissistic. I don't know. But if I'm can be a vessel of love, then I could be empathetic to somebody that is going, gimme, 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 gimme. And if I'm, gimme, 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 and I'm just trying to have my hand out to try to fill this cup, then who's to say who I'm ending up with, and if I'm gonna go in the right direction.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Loving is a verb, right?
Yes, it is.
And it's an active verb. Being loved is passive.
Mm,
So you
yeah.
could look at it that way too, that you have the privilege of loving your children. You have the privilege of loving. I mean, I'm grateful that we are talking today and we have this opportunity. You provided that opportunity for me. So I'm grateful for you. And several people who I've sent the last podcast to said, wow, you two guys are great together. And how did you meet him? And he's just so real and so present. And I said, yeah, I'm grateful for Martine. And they said, well, how did you, we talk a little bit about how we met, but they said, you're grateful? Yeah. It wasn't something I strategized. It wasn't something I put money on the internet to get.
Yeah,
It was God's work, you could say, if you don't mind
absolutely.
that language.
I
That,
love that. I love that. I
yeah,
believe that.
yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, and I feel
yeah.
the same way with you. I and if you don't know, like what's kind of happening here, guys, if you're listening to this, is kind of a therapy session for me. It really is. It's like so, you know, kind of what we're doing is is Dr. Free and I are talking about, what we talk about, what we want to talk about, but we're only talking about stuff that resonates for us.
Yes.
It's like it's something that's important for us. And in the whole conversation that we're having is actually I'm using that to go inside myself to see if there's truth in that. And because we want it to be real. We don't want it to be that we're just lecturing or we're talking about something. This is what we're like. For me, I'm actually going through it. So I don't know if you watch as Dr. Fu was talking about gratitude and how you distinguished it. I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool. I'm going to use that, and that's really
Yeah.
the value of coaching and the value of therapy, and is that if we use it and pull the tools out, and then we go use those tools to improve ourselves, even just a little bit, even if it's 1% a day or 1% a month, that is an exponential growth, and so that's what we're here to do, and
Well,
so we
yeah.
hope
What
that perspective.
what you could say is
What's that?
we reimagine our world. That's one way to
Yeah,
look at your life.
that's a cool way to.
You've
Yeah.
got a bunch of images that you've practiced and rehearsed and over the years, and you're saying to yourself, one day I'm not very happy, or I don't have much love in my life. That can be reimagined. In some terms, it's called being reborn. Some
Oh
people
yeah.
think of it that way. It's the rebirth of the imagination. That's what Martine is talking about. So when
Yeah.
we come together, we don't have a script like an outline. We come together out of our spirit, and spirit rebirths spirit. That's what it does. So when two people are talking and they're not trying to outgun each other, then what they're doing is birthing something that's deep inside and wants to be manifest, wants to be brought up. So
Yeah.
that's how I would say what Martine just said.
That's a really great way to segue back into that whole guarded self idea,
Yes,
because
yes,
to me, it's like if I set everything up to be perfect, then that really is for me at least. And I'm not saying that would be for other people, but for me, that's all about me, not trusting that
yeah,
what we say, how we connect is perfect. When I coach somebody, when I get coached myself, I don't show up with like, hey coach, you're supposed to say it this way. Nor do the people I coach say, hey coach, I need you to tell me these things. So why would we do that in a conversation like this? Let's just
right.
be real. Let's just be real and see what happens. And I so let's
Okay, now
so
go
let's
ahead.
let's talk about the garden. Let's talk
I was
about
going to say, Martine gave me a
what.
time limit. We could talk for 5 hours. So Martine said, here's the time limit, Fru. Let's go. So I'm looking at the clock and I'm saying, aye, aye, sir. So
Okay, let's go.
we talked about guardedness a few weeks ago and what happens in a relationship. And you can watch that podcast again if you have trouble getting the concept, because it's a very powerful concept relationally, extraordinarily powerful in creativity. It's
Yeah,
extraordinarily powerful in personal influence. It's extraordinarily powerful in personal success. Guardedness is crippling. Guardedness is limiting.
yeah,
Guardedness keeps you where you are, rehearsing and practicing and repeating where you are. So I got
yeah.
thinking about it because I knew we were going to talk about this. I thought, well, there's various kinds of guardedness, Stephen. What kind of guardedness are you talking about? Well, there's guardedness that's trauma driven. So I was abused as a child, and I'll tell you that story sometime if I get to know you guys well enough. And that set up something in me that sounded something like this: I will never let myself be hurt like that again. Those
Mm,
of you who out there who know abuse, you understand that message? I will never let that happen to me again. That's guardedness, man. Big
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Capital G. So I did a lot of pretending and a lot of manipulating trying to be important to people, trying to be loved by people, but not revealing who I really was because I knew where that road took me. It took me
Yeah.
into betrayal.
Yeah. So this is something that I work with daily with guys, and
Yes, you
and I and I
must.
and I,
Yes.
and I do work with women as well, but mostly guys. It's those decisions we make as a child, as an adolescent, as somebody that does not have the capacity to distinguish, um, is this a good decision for myself? And
Yes.
I think that when you say, I need to protect myself against this kind of person, that's a good decision. That's a great decision. However, it when something feels similar to that, similar, not the same thing, but similar to that, then we have a feeling of fear or some I call yuck feeling, and then we apply that guardedness to a situation that doesn't necessarily need guardedness, but it makes sense for us to guard, and that becomes more subconscious. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong. So it becomes more subconscious, and then it becomes habitual, and then eventually it becomes part of our personal reality, and then our personality. So then we are living life as a
Yeah.
guarded person, and then
Yes. It's
so
automatic
we're this
pilot.
way,
Yeah.
and then we wonder, at the age of 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, whatever, why am I so guarded? Why this is a person who I love. This is a person I marry. This is a person who, like, when I really look at it, really got my best interest, but yet I'm guarded against that person.
You know what? An interesting statistic is that I don't know what it's something like 75%. I don't know how accurate that is, but it's way up there of abuse to children, sexual abuse,
Hmm.
emotional abuse happens from somebody that they're close to.
Yes.
It's not the
Yeah.
stranger when they're walking into the grocery store. That's
Yeah.
a news headline, but
Yeah.
that's not typical. Typical is somebody that you trusted, you sat in their lap, or they betrayed you or fooled you. Now, what Martine is saying there is that if that person who should be the most trustworthy person, your uncle, your aunt, your brother, your sister, your father, your mother, grandfather, whoever it was, school teacher, if that person tricked you, then of course anybody in the world can
Anybody.
trick you. And that shows up. What we started this conversation, Martine was saying, what do you think about guardedness, Stephen? And supposing a man is in a new relationship, he's gone through a divorce, he's gone through some pain, he's done this, he's done that. He meets a woman and she's wonderful, she's perfect, she checks all the boxes. And that guy starts to say, comes in to see Martine. He says, I've been dating 3 or 4 or 5 months and I'm finding myself getting more and more guarded. What do you think that's about? So something is being repeated, but he
Yeah.
doesn't know what it is.
Hmm.
Okay. So
And then
that's
we anchor a deeper version of it. So it's
yeah,
kind of like we're then at some point we're then piling more on top of us, which has us, go back further, which has us not be able to see the forest through the trees. We're going back deeper into the forest. We're covering ourselves more up, and so basically what we see is darkness.
well, what happens there too is as I get it, if I'm that guy and I'm getting into the new relationship, and I start feeling myself getting guarded, I don't know how to talk. I don't have language for that. I don't know how to talk about it with her.
Yeah.
So what happens is she'll start to be critical. Well, you don't really share your feelings with me. Well, I'd like you to be more open with me.
Yeah.
Now, what does criticism produce? Criticism produces defensiveness. We
More
talked about
defensive.
John Gottman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Criticism produces it. So now I start defending myself if I'm that guy. Now,
Yeah.
my defense causes her to be even more critical. You're
Yeah.
always defending yourself.
Yeah.
So that it's a spiral that happens, and guardedness is a good word for it because it just drives us more and more into our shell. And then from that shell, we have the anti-aircraft guns in our shell. And from that shell, we can start to bang, 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 bang. It's your fault. It's your fault. But
Yeah.
really, it's our work that we're trying to
It's,
get to, and we haven't.
I was working with a gentleman this morning, and I've been working with him for about a year and a half. He was going through a divorce. He didn't want to get a divorce, so he's able to put his marriage back together. She's really excited about that. He moved back in the house. They're doing really great, and yet some of the stuff that happens in their relationship is still happening. It's
Yes,
still,
of
you know,
course. Yeah.
And so, because things happen, it doesn't matter if you've been, there's no perfect, there are no perfect people, and you and I won't be the first, and so, people are people. And so he was talking about this morning, he was asking me about having to be the first person to kind of like, put out the olive branch.
Uh-huh.
And I asked him, I said, so what would that be like? What would it be like to do that? And he just said, it would, like, from my perspective, it would be like a year of just getting kicked in the teeth.
Wow.
It would just be like that. Like that's
Wow.
like, and that's not true. It's just how it occurs for him.
Sure.
Like he's gonna, like the bell, bing, it's gonna resonate. Like
That's right.
his version of being great, and their marriage has gotten a lot better too. So, it's just he wants to go to the next level, and there are things they want to work on. So in order to go there, it's like, man, I think I'm just gonna have to get kicked in the teeth about these things until I can, do something so it causes a change. And so I said, so the only reason you're going to be, I asked him, so the only reason you want to change is to change her. He
Yeah.
just basically told me to F off, because
Yeah.
that's kind of a great guy. Oh, fuck you, like,
Yeah.
all right, because it was,
Right.
it was like,
Right.
you get called
Right.
on it. It's like, wow, well, what if how you were was just great with her? What if you just be great for just like for giving thanks, for the
Yeah.
privilege of being able to be the person that gives thanks, not with an expectation. However, or not even however, not with the expectation, and with the opportunity to have the experience of the experience of you that you want to have, which
That's
could
your
be of
gift.
a
That's your
kind
gift.
man, of a
Yeah.
loving man.
Yeah.
And
That's your gift.
yeah, that's your gift.
So,
Yeah.
uh, I'm obeying my boss. My boss is Martine, and he told me that we already have gone 2 minutes over. So if we want to keep that contract, let me just tell you what. Here's the tease for the next time. I have at least 4 types of guardedness. We talked about one, trauma. We're going to talk about learned guardedness. That's really interesting. Modeled
Mm.
guardedness. That's 2. We're going to talk about situational guardedness, what Martine referred to earlier, when there's situations when you're right to be guarded. You're in the parking lot at Albertsons and there's a funny person over there. You're correct to be guarded. So there's situational guardedness, and that is a lot deeper than what we just said. It has to do with your history of relationships. And there's strategic or manipulative or
Mm.
negotiator guardedness, how you manage your world. That comes from the orphan within. We haven't talked about the orphan yet. We will. But there's 2 individuals living within you. One way to picture this conversation: one is the orphan that you've been practicing since early in your life, and the other is the golden child within that hasn't been very well cared for and hasn't been very well tended to. So those 2 are what we call archetypes. Those are frameworks for you out there, and you who are interested in the conversation about guardedness, that we'll get into over the next whatever time. I hope you all
Yeah.
have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to share some of these thoughts with you and to be with Martine. So God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody coming. We're going to be here every other week. Like and comment, share this with your friends. I'm going to put Dr. Stevens' information in the description. He's an amazing coach. Reach out to him. I'm also not that bad either. I'm pretty good at doing what I'm doing. So,
He's not
reach
bad.
out to me. Happy to do it. Our
He's good.
commitment is our commitment. Okay, I'm going to say our commitment, my commitment, and I'm going to
Yeah.
say that our commitment is to make a difference for men. Help
Yes, that's right.
human beings live great
Absolutely.
lives and have men be great men.
Absolutely.
So
God
so
bless.
that's what you get.
Okay.
Cheers.